Welcome to the Wolves and Sheep podcast. I'm Roberta Glass, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the lies of Tonya Harding. Now, Tonya Harding was recently featured in the New York Times podcast, and it was a stunner of a whitewash of her complicity in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. So today I'm going to be talking really briefly about the evidence against Tonya Harding. Now, the New York Times made the argument that she was a victim of classism, of sexism, of a media run amok, and I would beg to differ. The evidence against Tonya Harding goes like this. Now, for those of you, let's just put a pause on it and stop and look at the cast of characters. There's Jeff Gillooly, who was Tonya Harding's ex-husband, Sean Eckert, a friend of Jeff Gillooly's, and Tonya Harding, who was back together with her ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, at this time. And this takes place, the attack on Nancy Kerrigan took place January 6, 1994. And she was smashed in the leg with a police baton. And it was actually not a great attack for Tonya Harding because Nancy Kerrigan only missed one competition because of it. And she worked through the injury and got a silver at the Olympics that year. So, despite of Tonya Harding's plans. Now, there were calls to Nancy Kerrigan's training center called Tony Kent Arena, and the people there said they heard a woman's voice and a man's voice were calling and asking when she was, going to be practicing. The most damning evidence against Tonya Harding is an envelope that was found and given to the FBI with the name of Tony Kent written on it in Tonya Harding's handwriting. Thirdly, there are the lies of Tonya Harding. Now, after the attack, she said, I have my bodyguard, Sean Eckert, here, and I'm not worried about the attack. And then you can see her denying that he was ever her bodyguard. This is on film, saying, I don't know this Sean Eckert. I'm not dumb enough to have a stupid bodyguard like Sean Eckert. And you can, cut to the tape of her being like, I'm not worried about these random attacker people who are out there attacking figure skaters. I got my bodyguard, Sean Eckert, right here. And he's there. I mean, this is before CGI became huge, so you can't say he CGI'd him in there. It's just a little ridiculous. And Sean Eckert provided a lot of evidence to the FBI, as did Jeff Gillooly. And both of them detail how this was Tonya Harding's idea, and she was with the planning every step of the way. And if you say, it's not that bad, that they just hurt her leg and she recovered from it, they had considered cutting her Achilles tendon, running her off the road, and killing her, and they kindly settled on breaking her landing leg. So after Tonya Harding had made all those calls to Tony Kent Arena, she started to get worried. And she met with Sean Eckert after the attack on January 11th in his home with Jeff Gillooly. And she came up with this alibi story that she was just calling the arena. So she said she called the arena. But she says it was because she was planning on getting this picture that she had of the both of them together, Kerrigan and Harding, signed by Kerrigan. Now, that's the story that Sean Eckert said she came up with. And that's the story Tonya Harding says to this day. That's the reason she was calling Tony Kent Arena. Now, if you're a Tonya Harding supporter, that is a very bad coincidence for you that she's calling the arena where Kerrigan was attacked to see what time she would be there before the attack. I would say that's a tremendous case of bad luck for you. She also denied to the FBI being at Eckerd's house on the 11th. And when she was shown pictures of her exiting the home on the 11th, she said, "Oh yeah, I was there briefly." So why would she lie about that? Why would she lie about knowing having Eckerd as a bodyguard? And why would she lie about being there on the 11th? And why would the story that she created as the alibi story be the story that she comes up with? Isn't that a coincidence that Sean Eckerd said, "Oh yeah, I was there when she created that story," and that's the story that she comes up with? Now you can say, well, Tonya Harding, this was, she didn't have any kind of criminal record before this. She didn't have any history of attacking her opponents or plotting against her opponents. Well, enter Jenna Halsey, who went to high school with Tonya Harding, who said that she had a history of plotting against her opponents, of putting scotch tape on their blades, of wishing that they would break their leg. When her mother said, "Oh, I wish Christy Yamaguchi would break her leg," Tonya Harding chimed in and said, "Oh, we can make that happen." Now, that's a very strange, again, bad coincidence for you, or a bad story for you if you're a Tonya Harding supporter, but it is all of one piece of Tonya Harding's sort of truth-challenged view of the world. She also wrote in her 2008 book, The Tonya Harding Tapes, that the reason that she eventually pled guilty to obstruction of justice, which means, let's just talk about what the obstruction of justice mean and what Tonya Harding's story is now. Tonya Harding said, "I had no knowledge prior to the attack, so I didn't know this was going to go down. But after the attack, when I found out, I didn't go to the FBI about it." Not only did she not go to the FBI, but she lied to the FBI. So she made a plea deal. And when you make a plea deal, you always plead to a lesser charge than what you try to plead to a lesser charge than what you did, because it has a lesser penalty. So when people say, well, she only was charged with obstruction of justice, that's because she created a plea deal for it, okay? And in 2008, when she came out with this book, her reasoning for not coming out with the story was that Jeff Gillooly took her in her truck and put a gun to her head and raped her. Where is this story now? It's not in I, Tonya, the movie. She's not telling it on talk shows now. This story of a brutal gun to the head and rape has just disappeared. And you have to wonder why. And my answer is that it's part of the Tonya Harding fantasy, is that I was such a good person that only under the threat to my own life, under this terrible abuse. And if you want to talk about the Menendez brothers' abuse excuse, this is really, the Tonya Harding story is, I was abused, I didn't know how to act better. But we see people all the time who had terrible upbringings not being charged with felonies. So we always have a choice to act better in life, and I think it's wrong to assume that you can't overcome your upbringing. And I think that why this bothers me so much is that the New York Times, which we rely on as to tell us the truth, is just omitting facts. It's not the first time that they've done this, but just omitting facts and presenting a false story to the public. And we rely on our media to form our opinions, for a source of knowledge, and it's really wrong to create this myth. And why I think this myth is so attractive to the American public is because Nancy Kerrigan was such a disappointment as a hero. We need heroes. And when she came out, she came off as ungracious. She complained about Asana Bayul taking too long for the medal ceremonies with her makeup. She complained that the Disney ceremony that she was a part of was corny, and she just looked like she was disappointed with her silver. And it was very, very close. People forget how close it was between her and Oksana Bayul, excuse me, how close it was. And she failed us as a hero. So now, I don't think she failed me personally. I think that we have a misconception in our country that you have to be a great person to do great things. And there are plenty of really messed up people that do amazing things and possess incredible talents. And I think that we are an all or nothing country. We have to be all great, or all, or you're all bad. We have a lot of really disappointing heroes. That's the truth. So that's why it bothers me. And it bothers me that the New York Times is making this an issue of classism, of sexism, and saying that she was judged very harshly because she didn't have the right image. Now, in figure skating, you're judged on presentation, on the music you choose, and how you present yourself, and the kind of creativity of your production. And you can say that if you don't have Vera Wang, like Nancy Kerrigan did, designing your costumes, you're at a disadvantage. That is true. But it is a kind of hard thing to prove either way. Those scores are really hard to break down how they came about. There's many people involved, and why they made the decisions that they did are really impossible to get to the bottom of. And in the I, Tonya movie, they have these kind of shadowy figures saying, Tonya Harding, you just don't have the right image. But you have to remember that she made it to the Olympics. Now, if they were conspiring against her, that is a failure on the part of figure skating, that she got that far. Excuse me, that's my speaker going off. So, in conclusion, I think that what the New York Times wants us to believe is that the crime of orchestrating the assault on Nancy Kerrigan is nothing compared to the crime of hurting Tonya Harding's feelings. And that is a ridiculous claim. So, I'm just going to leave it here. This is a really tiny little podcast exploration of this, but I want to keep it short. And thanks for listening. And if you have any comments, write them in the comment section. Thanks so much.